everyone, welcome to this brand new lecture on cognitive functions. If you don't know what cognitive functions are, please take a gander at this video. We'll start today's series by doing a deep dive into one of the 8 cognitive functions, introverted sensation, which is denoted by the shorthand SI. Now, remember there are 4 main cognitive functions that Carl Jung talks about in his book Psychological Types. There's intuition, whose opposite is sensation. There's thinking, whose opposite is feeling. If you don't know what these processes are, please take a look at this video. We arrive at introverted sensation or SI when we apply the concepts of introversion and extroversion to the 4 main cognitive functions, which produces a total of 8 cognitive functions. So there's introverted sensation, extroverted intuition, extroverted sensation, introverted intuition, extroverted feeling, introverted thinking, introverted feeling, and extroverted thinking. So why do I want to start today's lecture with introverted sensation? Because I, as an INFP, also use introverted sensation, and right now at this point in my life it is proving to be a source of pain for me. It's keeping me hemmed in. I'm in this cocoon of comfort and I resist new experiences. In plain speak, this means that I don't have any friends, I don't want to make new friends, I don't want to go on dates, I don't want to meet new people, I don't want to put myself in risky situations. I'm comfortable just staying in, reading a book or playing video games. And my world is really narrow at the moment. I'm stuck in the past. I keep seeing flashes of all that happened to me and I keep romanticizing the people and the situations I found myself in. The point of all this is that my SI wants to keep me safe. And that is the whole point of SI. It is to maintain harmony within yourself. It's to keep you comfortable and to choose experiences that are familiar versus experiences that are novel, bizarre, ungrounded, and risky. Let me make this really clear. Of course, the way I'm using SI right now, or the way I'm being used by my SI right now, is super unhealthy. But that's not what it looks like for a person who is a predominant user of introverted sensation, like an ISTJ or an ISFJ. And let me get into the weeds of how SI shows up with these types. Now, let's get back to introverted sensation, which is a portmanteau of introversion and sensation. Now, what does introversion mean? So introversion is a process when you kind of cut off from all that's happening around you and you go within yourself, you withdraw, and you add some sort of a personal commentary on what is it that you're experiencing. And what does this commentary look like? Whether whatever you're experiencing, does it make you feel good or it doesn't make you feel good? Whether it makes sense or it's nonsense. Whether whatever you're experiencing reminds you of something from the past, or how do you think this experience is going to end? So there's this constant chatter going inside of your head, and that's what introversion is. It's an indulgence into your mind to the point that it makes you want to cut off from the experience itself. So what's sensation? Sensation is basically picking up sensory information about your environment through your eyes, your mouth, your hands, and your ears. And so when you put both of them together, introverted in sensation means you're analyzing this sensory information. And this analysis is somehow very exhilarating for an introverted sensor. Now I'll just give you an example. So to understand introverted sensation, we have to contrast it with extroverted sensation, which is the same process of using your senses to receive information about your environment, but the orientation is different. One is an introverted process and the other is an extroverted process. Now Jung, who came up with these concepts of introverted sensation and extroverted sensation, which we call cognitive functions, basically calls extroverted sensation an objective process and introverted sensation a subjective process. Now, what does he mean by that? Just to give you an example, let's say you're an extroverted sensor and you find yourself at an art gallery. You're looking at this painting, so you study the painting. You look at the colors, you're probably guessing at what techniques were used to make that painting if you're into art. And at some point you almost feel this compulsion to touch the canvas, to feel the texture of this piece of art. So it's not just this painting that catches your attention. You could also be looking at a spider web that is just above this painting. You could also be pulled into this couple just behind you who are talking about whether they should quickly take a picture of this painting when the guard isn't looking, because photography is not allowed. So as an extroverted sensor, you indulge in the present moment. But if you were an introverted sensor, this process or this experience could be different for you. You would definitely be looking at the painting and studying all of the components, color, the feel of the canvas upon which the painting was made, just as an extroverted sensor. But at some point, Jung explains in his book Psychological Types that there's sort of a disconnection that happens with the object, in this case the painting, and the introverted sensor pulls inward because the painting that he or she is looking at reminds them of a childhood memory. Maybe the first time you learned how to play with colors and create your own piece of art. And so this memory could generate other memories about your family members or your friends with whom you were learning how to paint. Now, these memories could eventually hijack the mind of the introverted sensor to the point where the introverted sensor finds this whole nostalgic experience more stimulating than the painting itself. Now, Jung says no one is privy to that moment when the shift happens for an introverted sensor from the external object, that piece of art that the person was looking at, to withdrawing into the realms of the mind and revisiting these memories. The question follows, does introverted sensation mean the past, and is an introverted sensor stuck in the past? Well, that's certainly one way to describe the entire process, where the introverted sensor is basically gathering all of the pieces of information about all the experiences that they have had, and they're reflecting on these experiences, categorizing them, performing some sort of an assessment on them, having a standard with which they measure the new experience with the past experience. What components of the new experience remind them of the past experience? And was the past experience good or bad? And if the past experience was indeed bad, what parts of the present experience remind them of the past? And so in this way, an introverted sensor would try to avoid a new experience because some parts of this new experience remind them of the past, particularly if that past experience was bad. As you can see, an introverted sensor is always going to compare and contrast their present experience with an experience that they've had in the past. Introverted sensors are definitely going to make a lot of assumptions, just like any introvert having a primary introverted process in their ego. And these assumptions actually prevent the introverted sensor from taking action. Or even if they do take action, they have a tendency to indulge themselves in these assumptions and in these paranoias about their new experience. For example, there was a religious public holiday following which there was a long weekend. On one of those weekends, my brother decided to not go to the gym because he knew that, or he assumed that the gym would be crowded with people who normally don't get to work out on weekdays due to work and other commitments. And he also gave me advice to avoid the gym, but I ended up going anyway, and I found that the gym was empty. Example illustrates introverted sensation at work, where the introverted sensor makes an assumption about the present situation and avoids an experience because they don't want to be in an uncomfortable situation. Jung also says that because of these assumptions, introverted sensors tend to be very cautious, tend to be very risk averse. They don't like putting themselves in unfamiliar situations because they like to maintain their stability, their homeostasis. And the opposite of introverted sensation is not extroverted sensation, but it is in fact extroverted intuition, also denoted as NE. Now, if you're a primary NE user or a primary user of extroverted intuition, you tend to be more open to ideas, possibilities, and experiences. And if you're a primary SI user, you're going to repress the opposite cognitive function, which is extroverted intuition, which means that you're going to prefer the traditional as opposed to something that's avant-garde. And whatever is new or avant-garde, you're going to be very sensitive to all the risks that this new possibility entails, and that is going to consume your mind. You're going to be on high alert, watching out for these risks and these threats. So what are some of the signs that you are a primary user of introverted sensation, or SI? Which means, what are some of the signs that you're an ISTJ or an ISFJ? You feel at ease when any new experience that you're having matches up to your expectation or your standard of what a good experience should feel like. And the flip side of that is, of course, do you feel uncomfortable when your physical comforts are compromised, or you find yourself thrown into this unfamiliar situation and you don't know how to navigate the situation because you've not had any prior experience? The second sign that you're probably an ISTJ or an ISFJ is when you find yourself being very cautious, very careful in how to navigate any situation. Do you like to gather prior knowledge or information? Do you like to know what is the procedure and who is the authority who can guide me on how this needs to be done? Thirdly, do you like routines? And do you get super pissed off when someone distracts you or disrupts your routine? Do you have a big negative reaction to it? And lastly, when you're stressed or when you're feeling at your lowest, do you tend to harp on the small details? Do you tend to complain about how your present situation is lacking and cannot match up to the experiences that you've had in the past? Alright folks, that's a wrap. Hopefully this video helped you understand the many flavors and the many nuances of introverted sensation, or SI. My next video is going to be the opposite of introverted sensation, which is extroverted intuition, and be sure to watch that when it comes out. Until then, don't get complacent. Love you, love me, love Mademoiselle Venus.